one thing. It is the FIM European Finals. Darryl, what can we expect to see?
Best drag racing on the planet in the short version. We've got all the championships to set up in the FIM. Rickard Gustafsson may take his first one on a real Top Fuel bike. We've also got Pro Stock and Super Street bike and so much more to show you.
Well, let's get down to it.
Well, the European Finals was a fraught weekend. It always is, normally, in September in England, because there's lots of championships up for grabs. The weather threw us an extra curveball this weekend. That's why we have Super Street qualifying in the dark. This was late on Friday night. It was chilly. The track crew had done such a fantastic job getting the track back in a go situation where everybody could go out there and run fast. And run fast the Super Street bikes did. This is their first qualifying session. Steve Mead, far side the racetrack, taking on Matthias Bolin from Sweden. It really is dark out there. You can see the headlights on these bikes, just proving they pretty much are street bikes underneath all that. So looking for hopefully low 7 seconds, approaching 200 miles an hour into what is virtually a black hole, even with the fantastic lighting. And they're both away very cleanly and very nicely as well. It's going to be Matthias Bolin getting to the finish line first with a nice run, 7.43, 191 to Steve Mead's 7.91. Next up, Robert Nielsen and Mark Hope. Robert near side of the racetrack, Mark on the far side. Big crowd on hand on Friday night. They waited through all the weather, all the rain and all the delays. And we're very appreciative of all the Super Street bikes putting on a great show. Mark with problems off the start line, but no such trouble at all for Robert Nielsen. Blast down with a 7.65 at 1.84. Next pair, Dave Thomas and Clements Walliet. Both these two waited, again, an awful long time throughout the day for their chance at the quarter mile here in the darkness. Dave Thomas nearest the camera right there from Wales. Down in the 7 seconds on a regular basis in 2017 with his bike. Clements looking to get back there again this weekend here at Santa Pod. Can I imagine what these riders must be thinking, just trying to fire themselves into a black hole at nearly 200 miles an hour, some of them over as well, hopefully. Clements Walliet with a nice run, 7.90, 179 with his shift light glowing in his face at every gear shift as well. So both of those two will be qualified for eliminations. Next up, we've got Gary Bow and Graham Bouchin. That's Gary. Been down in the sixes. Maybe slightly tough to run a 6 second pass on this breezy, cold, damp evening at Santa Pod. However, if anyone can do it, one of these two can. Far side of the racetrack, even though you can't see him, that silhouette over there is Graham Bouchin. Graham with another one of those turbocharged Kawasaki's, and it's Graham Bouchin away much better than Gary Bow, actually. Graham goes 7.27, 197. In fact, they both go 197 miles an hour in the darkness. Pro Stock bike qualifying was in the slightly brighter weather on the Saturday. You can still see the storm clouds around though. This was one of the dry patches, and this was the only qualifying session Pro Stock bike actually managed. It's Charlie out first, although it was a red light. That doesn't matter in qualifying, obviously. Frederick goes to the top spot, 7.09, 185 miles an hour, doing his very best to take the top spot back again in this year's championship.
Number one qualifier this weekend. Is it going to be good enough to clinch that championship for you?
I hope so. We will do the best for us in the elimination and see what it takes us. I think it will work out good.
Confident for your first round?
Yeah, I can never be confident. You can't count out anyone, you know. It's elimination, you need to be first over the finish line. So we will take it as a normal run and see what this takes us.
So on to the monstrous Super Twins. Their only qualifying session as well over the weekend. Far side, defending champion Martin de Haas taking on Roman Sixer on the near side of the racetrack. Roman still has an outside chance of taking the championship this weekend, and the conditions and the setup really getting the better of Martin de Hassel. Nearly, I should say, nearly in the wall that time. Roman Sixer over the centre line. He managed to just about hang on to it. 7:16, 188 miles an hour to go into number one at that point. Up next for the UK was the supercharged Super Twin of Chris Hannum, with Neil Midgley on board, slowly but surely sneaking up on the perfect combination on this machine. Everything's getting dialed in. They've been in the very, very low sevens on this bike. A 6-second run is, well, imminent, let's put it that way. All the numbers in testing to half track. Everybody out here knew this was probably going to be their only chance at the racetrack, and Neil Midgley absolutely made the most of it. Number one with his first ever 6-second pass, a 6:76 at a very early shut-off, 164 miles an hour. Congratulations to Chris, Neil and the whole team.
Our number one qualifier in Super Twin this weekend, how are you feeling?
I'm very pleased to be number one qualifier. It's my first European race in the Super Twin class, and that was my personal best on this bike. I have been a bit quicker on a funny bike about 7 years ago, but yeah, we're very pleased with the bike's performance this weekend.
On to top fuel bike, one shot qualifying again. Far side of the racetrack, Eric Charles from France, near side Alan Davis, both on picture perfect runs until Eric lands the front wheel and takes a really nasty tumble. Alan Davis went through with no problems whatsoever. However, Eric ended up on the tarmac, a little bit shaken up and probably the odd scrape or bump here and there. However, importantly, sitting up, looking, making sure everything's still there, the same place as when he started the run. The medical team on hand instantly just to make sure he's okay. But very unusual to see one of these riders lose it at high speed. However, the front wheel just washed out on Eric's bike and there was nothing he could do whatsoever when the bike tipped over a bit. Continuing with qualifying from the UK, Steve Woollett with the dealer, the top fuel bike, going up in this pair against Phil Papaphilippou from Greece with the nitrous funny bike. The track now in a brilliant go situation. Steve goes 6:34, Phil 6.70. It was Steve, the number one qualifier.
So Steve, our number one qualifier this weekend in top fuel bike, how's it been?
Yeah, good. You know, one shot qualifier, we had to make it count.
And the bike's been running well for you?
Yeah, yeah. We've done all that way.
Well, good luck in your first round, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Now, you don't have to dress up to go drag racing, but if you're going to do it, this is how we do it. Let's go racing.
Next pair, Daniel Lentz from Hungary, going up against Steve Mead. We saw Steve in qualifying earlier on as well. Daniel, though, very, very much on form in the latter part of 2017, down into the 7-1s, the rider from Hungary. So this from place in round two. Steve Mead hasn't been quite as quick as Daniel Lentz, but never ever count him out, because that machine really can fly when it's on song. And talking about flying, Steve Mead away with no problems. Daniel Lentz, though, the bike goes woo right up in the air. He brings it down nice and safely, but by the time he does, Steve Mead is long gone in the other lane. Watch that again in replay and you can clearly see just that little bit too much boost, a couple of 100 foot out from the start line for Daniel Lentz, and a fairly soft landing by comparison. However, that's his day done. It's only win lights that count on race day, obviously. Next pair, Robert Nielsen, all the way over from Sweden. Robert really good in qualifying, taking on Graham Dance. Now, Graham's best this season is in the 7.3s. However, Robert Nielsen has been a tick quicker than that. As I've said many times, though, this is all about racing. It's not about what they've done before. So they're going to stage them up and run. So Graham Dance from the UK far side to the camera there, Robert Nilsson from Sweden. This could be one hell of a race actually here in round 1. Both into stage and both away absolutely together. Graham Dance with a little wheel stand off the start line. It is Robert Nilsson though, keeps it planted. That was a great race. 7.25 at 195, takes out a 7.38, 1.94 to Graham Dance. That's what Super Street bike racing is all about. Very close, very hard fought, big field of international competition. So the man looking to wrap up a 2017 championship right there, Rick Stubbins from the UK. He won in Hockenheim. His quickest run ever was a 7.01 in that final round when he took out Morganslund. He's going up against Matthias Bolin, another member of the Swedish invasion, the Scandinavian invasion over here for the whole weekend in all the bike classes. Now, going on qualifying, Rick should have this covered. However, qualifying was very, very tricky indeed. This is all about getting to the finish line first, and they're away almost dead even. Hard to tell the bikes apart actually. Robert Nilsson falls back a bit towards the finish line. No mistake at all for Rick Stubbins. 7.21, 197 miles an hour. Takes out a 7.71 for Matthias Bolin. Great race. So Gemma Venables on the far side. We should be seeing her dad in just a moment. Gemma, a very, very capable Super Street bike rider. Been down in the low sevens on many, many occasions, taking on Eric Gruber with another one of those, well, I normally say they're rare Kawasaki's. However, this weekend we got a few of them here in Super Street Bike. Gemma goes red on the tree, hands the win to Eric Gruber, who makes no mistake for the 4/4 mile. 7.90, 180, another 7-second run for him. Gemma, unfortunately, out in round 1 with a big red light. Sitting in the burnout box behind her was her dad. He got a perfect view of what just happened, hoping not to make the same mistake. Knut Muller with another one of those speedy Kawasaki's against Steve Venables. Steve, for years, was the perennial #1 in Super Street Bike. Not so now. He hasn't had it his own way at all in 2017. What can Knut Muller do about that? Well, they're both actually on and off the throttle. Steve settles down quicker and takes the win at 8.05, only 181 miles an hour. I say only, for him, that's actually quite pedestrian. But most importantly for him, he is into round 2. Okay, here we go then with the first round of Pro Stock Bike. Far side of the racetrack, Martin Bishop taking on Charlie Abraham from France. And Charlie goes almost over the centre line while Martin makes no mistake whatsoever. 7.46, 177 miles an hour. And commiserations to Charlie Abraham. I know he was looking for a good showing again this weekend. Really got a handle on the bike since he bought it from Gert-Jan Lesueur, but unfortunately just wasn't his weekend here at Santa Pod this time round. Watch again in replay, you can clearly see Charlie's bike launch for the centre line. Did very, very well to stop hitting the blocks, but it was Martin all the way through. So your next pair is going to be Martin Newbury taking on Alex Hope. Alex, far side the racetrack, still got a slim chance of actually taking the FIM crown here this weekend at Santa Pod. Standing in his way is Martin Newbury, the finalist from a year ago. Both these bikes are pretty evenly matched. Not much to choose between them. I think it's Martin Newbury that actually moves first. Alex hanging off the side of the bike, keeping it in a straight line and keeping the win light on as well. 7.41 takes out a 7.48. Great race between those two guys from the UK. Up next, we've got Robert Karlsson from Sweden, who's come over here with the specific intent of nicking Fredrik Fredland's Pro Stock Bike elapsed time and speed record. Going to be a big ask this weekend, though, into the headwind that we've got here on race day, taking on Lenny Paget from the UK, in as an alternate for Serge Pinet. Unfortunately, problems with the V-twin in qualifying means Lenny gets a chance to race in round number 1. Well, it looks like Robert's got the lead as they go past the Christmas tree, and he's definitely got it at the finish line as well, with lower laps time of the weekend so far, 7:02, 188 miles an hour. Lenny with a game 7:81, but just was not enough. That one was all about Robert Carlson. Last pair in round 1, the man who wants to be champ again, Frederik Friedland from Holland. Nearest to the camera, taking on Maurice Bertrand from France. Another one of the real strong French competitors here in Pro Stock Bike. But Frederik, my goodness me, lots and lots of bike lengths at the finish line. 7:11, 185. Books his place in the semis, and he could well wrap up the championship later on today. And it's to round 2 we go now. Eric Gruber taking on Steve Venables. Now, if Steve has problems like he did in the first round, I'm pretty sure that Eric Gruber is going to be there to take him out. Let's just wait and see what happens. So Steve had some luck against one Kawasaki in round 1. Can he get everything calmed down and get to the other end in good fashion in round 2? Okay, they both nudge it in, bring the RPMs up. Steve Venables, red lights, and actually spins the tyre off the start line. I doubt he would have won that one even if he'd have got a green light start. 7:88, wow. Got to be Eric Gruber's best ever day at the racetrack in Super Street Bike. Next up, Robert Nilsson going to be taking on Morgans Lund. This is a monster Scandinavian matchup, this one. Both of these are in the very, very low 7s. Morgans Lund pretty much in the 7.0s, 7.1s a lot of the time. Robert Nilsson's around about the same as well. Robert's closest to the camera. He's from Sweden, the Sunoco machine, far side of the racetrack. You're familiar with that figure. That's Morgans Lund. Morgan's still hunting for that first ever 6-second run for him. Here we go then. Morgans needs to win and keep winning to keep his championship hopes alive. Well, almost dead even off the start line. There's nothing in it at all as they go down the racetrack, and it is by around about a bike length Morgans Lund that takes the win. They both run 7.1 seconds elapsed times, but most importantly for him, the win light is in Morgans Lund's lane. So now he's seen Morgans Lund take the win. Rick Stubbins has got to do the same thing. Graham Bouchin on the far side with one of those pesky Kawasaki's. So Rick Stubbins has got to win this one just to make sure the championship still goes in his direction. Well, it's a whole shot for Rick Stubbins. He tucks in at the top end. Will Graham Bouchin nick him? Oh my goodness, only half a bike length, and it was a whole shot win as well. 7:26 takes out a 7:20. Wow. That could be all important in the championship chase. Great, great race. Pro Stock Bike up now, and very, very important for that man warming the rear tyre underneath the tower. Frederik Friedland from the beautiful island of Åland, looking to wrap up the championship. If he takes this win against his good friend Martin Bishop, the title will be his once again. He lost out by an absolute whisker last year to Gert-Jan Lesueur. Gert-Jan had a great, great season. Frederik won the last event. He needed to win it, set low elapsed time and top speed as well. He did the elapsed time, won the event, just didn't quite make it on the mile an hour, unfortunately for him. So if Frederik wins this race, he will be your 2017 Pro Stock Bike champion once again. He's got the performance advantage over Martin Bishop by a couple of tenths of a second. Can that make any difference at all in this race? Well, it's a green light drag race, and Frederick's already out there in front by a bike length as they go past 3:30, and through the finish line he takes it, no mistake whatsoever. 7:17.185 takes out a 7:56 for Martin Bishop, and Frederick Fredland is your 2017 FIM Pro Stock Bike champion. You see on board and you don't see anywhere out the side view Martin Bishop whatsoever. It's an awful long way for Frederick to come to race here at Santa Pod, but he doesn't seem like he's got any kind of jet lag or bus lag or anything like that when he gets here to race. I don't think that one was ever in doubt. Super Street Bike semi-finals, and this is the biggie. Morgenslund with the Sunoco bike and Rick Stubbins. Now Morgenslund, I think, has a very outside mathematical chance of taking the championship if he wins this, wins the final and sets the record. However, Rick Stubbins, I don't think, wants any of that to happen. He's going to go all out for not only this round win, but the event win and the championship as well. This is where everybody starts sweating, because all of the travelling, all of the hard work throughout the whole season come down to this. They're both away pretty much together. There's hardly anything in it at all whatsoever until Morgenslund drifts over towards the centre line. Rick Stubbins takes the win with a victory lap. 7.17, 185 miles an hour, and the 2017 Super Street Bike Cup champion. Well done to him and the whole team. But who will he be facing in the final here at Santa Pod Raceway? One of these two, Eric Gruber. I keep calling them pesky Kawasaki's, but today they've been winning Kawasaki's. He's going to be taking on Steve Mead. Neither of these two, I think, have ever been in an FIM Super Street Bike final. So whoever takes this one is going to be very happy indeed, and very much looking forward to taking on Rip Stubbins for all the money in that final round. So nice to see Eric Gruber. He took a spill here a couple of years ago at Santa Pod. Great to see him back on the bike and back in the sevens as well. But this one looks like it's all Steve Mead. No trouble whatsoever for the Englishman. 7:53 takes out a great try for Eric Gruber at 7.76. Championships up for grabs in the last two classes as well. Super Twin up first. Martin de Haas, winner from Hockenheim just a few weeks ago, taking on Roman Sixter, who's been knocking on the door for an awful long time to win one of these events. Travels an awful long way from the Czech Republic and puts in some great performances as well. Martin de Haas gets a slap on the back from his brother, as if to say, go get him. Well, it's Roman Sixter way out there in front. Martin de Haas with a wheel in the air, but it wasn't enough that time. 6.92, 197 takes out Martin de Haas's 7.10. Roman Sixter, what a scalp to take. Defending European champion. You see Martin getting all sorts of out of shape over towards the wall a little bit. Keeps it nailed all the way through, but it just wasn't enough today against Roman Sixter. Who will he be racing in the final? It'd be one of these two. Bruno Celeste from France. This bike's had a lot of history in European Super Twin racing. Been down in the sixes a number of times, and with a couple of very famous riders indeed. Now Bruno's turn to see if he can manhandle it down the quarter mile. He's going to be taking on, though, the formidable figure of the number one qualifier, Neil Midgley, on Chris Hannam's supercharged Super Twin. Both eating the tyres in real good fashion. Neil Midgley did an awful lot of testing with this bike before he even came to this event. This is his first ever event in FIM competition. Well, it's Bruno Celeste off the start line first, and Neil Midgley leaves well, but unfortunately for him, spins the tyre. Bruno Celeste has to get off the throttle. If he can just keep it off the centre line, which he does by that much, he will be in his first ever FIM Super Twin final. You can see Neil Midgley's bike kind of coughing and spluttering as the tyre let go. Bruno Celeste in the final. There's a surprise. Talking of surprises, FIM Top Fuel bike is missing in the qualified field the guy who could actually take the championship, Rikard Gustafsson. Due to the fact it was a one-shot qualifier, not enough bikes made passes, so it ended up being a 4-bike field instead of an 8. Rikard had problems on his one and only qualifying run, so you can see his bike just in the background there. He's an alternate, which means if he wants to race, one of these 2 pairs of bikes has to break, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen, so he just has to kind of watch and wait to see how his championship aspirations will play out. So the first pair is going to be number 1 qualifier Steve Woolap on the dealer, number 1 qualifier by a bunch. Terrific run in qualifying for a one-shot qualifier as well, when everybody was nervous. They knew they were only going to get one shot. Great run. Taking on Darryl Leaks. Darryl ran his first ever 6-second round down in Hockenheim a few weeks ago, 6.99 on the Warp Speed Racing funny bike. Can the funny bike slay the fuel bike? Well, he doesn't slay him so much as he kind of falls on his own sword, really. Steve Willett goes red on the tree, which means that Dale Leaks is into his first ever final in his first ever FIM Top Fuel Bike race. Congratulations to him. 175. Takes out a red light from Steve Woolap. That really is a shock. So, can it be an all Warp Speed MPM Racing final? Because on the other side of the ladder, you've got Stu Crane taking on Phil Papafilippou. You can see Steve Woolap was way out in front in that replay. However, he left a red light behind. I think he probably saw it, kept it nailed for a few seconds, and then obviously thought better of it and rolled off the finish. At the finish line. So this is the second pair I mentioned, Stu Crane with almost an identical bike. However, so far his has been a little tick quicker than Dale Leaks, taking on the quickest nitrous funny bike in Europe, possibly the world as well, Phil Papafilippou from Greece. Well, no mistake at all for Stu Crane. Phil has problems off the start line. Stu through the finish line in a ball of fire, which is very unusual to see on a funny bike. Well, the flames licking round his legs, does the smart thing and actually sits up on the bike. Well, he's in the final, but my goodness, that engine's gone bang in a big way. When the front wheel comes down, the bike charges hard for the finish line. He ran his personal best on that run. Can he get it fixed for the final, though? Well, despite Stu Crane being on fire, that was the last of any remote warmth we would feel on this race day here at Santipod Raceway. The weather was against us all weekend, and the track crew couldn't have worked harder, or the teams couldn't have worked harder. They still put on a fantastic show, but sadly, that was the end of proceedings.
So as you can see behind me, the weather did finally get the best of us this weekend. Unfortunately, the races had to push back. So Darryl, where does this leave the FIM Championship?
The championships are still decided, just unfortunately not the way we wanted them to be. Frederick Friedland gets his Pro Stock bike title back. Rikard Gustafsson takes the Top Fuel title, but again, not the way they wanted to do it, sadly, but they're still deserving champions.
Everyone's worked so hard this weekend, so please don't lose faith and come back racing next year with us.